In a report by Debcafile, they're reporting that there are 4 players who are now vying for position in Syria in the wake of the end of the Syrian civil war. The 4 major players are, of course, Russia, Iran on one side, and Israel and the United States on the other. And it looks like there's a reversal in strategy. It looked like that President Trump was going to spend more time in the Far East and try to cut back on what's going on in the Middle East. It looks like now not only is he going to press the issue in the Middle East, but he's also taking part in raids against Iran positions in Syria. And this is what the article says Trump took a big move in this game on January the 12th when he stipulated that Europe agree to overhaul the Iranian nuclear accord on enrichment and ballistic missiles. That condition, which President Donald Trump laid down for the future, when on Friday he met the deadline for recertifying U.S. sanctions waivers and kept the 2015 nuclear accord in place, was just one facet of his administration's frontal campaign against Iran. But not only is Trump focusing on Iran, but he's also focusing on Russia. The Trump administration opted for this policy departure as the new year unfolded in the light of 4 game-changing developments, and here they are. Number 1, Russia is not pulling its army out of Syria after all, despite the commitment made publicly by President Vladimir Putin on December 11th. Just the reverse. Moscow is bolstering its military presence there, mainly with Air Force contingents. Number 2, moves on the ground attest to deepening Russian-Iranian cooperation in Syria. Number 3, Iran is reported by intelligence agencies to be preparing a small-scale supplementary military deployment to Syria, which our sources estimate as running to several thousand Shiite fighters. And frankly, I believe that's just the beginning, especially with Hezbollah. And with time, I would probably say that's going to be in the tens of thousands, if not more. Number 4, Tehran has boosted its consignments of advanced weaponry to Syria, including ballistic missiles. The Israeli airstrike on January 9th targeted one of those shipments when it was delivered to Syrian ground-to-ground missile base at a base fairly close to Damascus. Now here's something that has been unusual. It says a notable point made by that attack, which was on this base, was that this time, unlike in most other air sorties in Syria, Israel was acting in conjunction with the United States. This was a reversal of Israel's former strategy during the 6 years of the Syrian civil war. Until now, its military actions in Syria were kept separate from U.S. operations in that country. The Israeli turnaround followed the revamping of U.S. policy. Apparently, Trump has dropped his former decision to limit U.S. military action in Syria to fighting the Islamic State. He is now ready to go for the Iranian military presence in Syria, including its proxy Hezbollah. This opened the door to closer U.S.-Israeli military cooperation in Syria. But there are also broader connotations. Syria finds itself back at the heart of the Middle East strife. As the civil war winds down, that country is evolving into a pivotal arena, not only for smaller proxy wars, but now for big power competition with the U.S. and Israel lining up against Russia and Iran. Interestingly, the easing of tensions between the U.S. and North Korea has helped Washington switch its focus to the jockeying for position in post-war Syria against 2 other rivals, Moscow and Tehran. And here's something I think is real interesting. It says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has, for his part, done his utmost throughout the conflict to keep an open line of communication with Vladimir Putin and avoid colliding with Russian military elements in Syria. But it is hard to see how he can keep this up in the near future and avoid a clash between Israeli and Russian interests there. Still, in Jerusalem, Moscow was awarded good marks for staying silent over Israel's latest airstrike against the Iranian arms shipment headed toward the Iranian base near Damascus. Important light has shed on U.S. intentions for Iran even more clearly than President Trump's future stipulations for abiding by the nuclear deal. When David Satterfield, acting Assistant Secretary for Near Eastern Affairs, appeared a day earlier before the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. And basically, when asked why the U.S. Was still concerned about the affairs of what was going on in Syria outside of fighting ISIS, behind closed doors, he did indicate that the U.S. was not only concerned about ISIS, but also the ability for Iran to move weaponry and other material so freely in the region along Israel's northern border. So there you have it. This is exactly what the Bible does say regarding what the future holds for the region as pertaining to the Gog and Magog war and what is stated in Ezekiel 38. And I think what you're going to see here in the near future is that you're going to see a gathering of not only Iranian troops, but also proxies and other Shiite volunteers who come from all parts of the region in Syria. And you're going to see this army grow from thousands to probably tens of thousands, and maybe even into the hundreds of thousands. And one more thing, it wouldn't shock me a bit if Russia did not put a message out to North Korea to start causing trouble in that region again, just to get the United States off their back in the Middle East. So we'll have to wait and see if North Korea does begin to start looking to test missiles, or to look like they're going to test another missile, just to bring attention back to that area and away from what Russia's trying to do in Syria. But there's no question about it, the Bible is true, and things that they have talked about 2,500 years ago and prophesied are beginning to come true. Certainly, who would have believed 100 years ago that this would be taking place, and that Russia and Iran would be bearing down upon Israel's northern border in these last days? That's all I have for you in this video. If you like this video, please make an effort to go right now and like this video, and also take the time to also comment and make any suggestions that you might have regarding this video. And of course, if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put it off. You know, the Lord is coming back, and when he does, he's only going to rapture those who know him, leaving those behind who will have to go through the most horrible 7 years that this world's ever known. But you know, there's something worse than going through the tribulation period, and that is dying in your sins. Because the Bible says that whoever dies in their sins is going to end up in the lake of fire. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord, allow him to save you today. And you Christians, you need to get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide and get it to your friends and loved ones who are not saved. You know, it's possible they could actually get saved before the rapture takes place, but just in case they don't, they'll have this book that will tell them what is coming up for them in the next 7 or so years. And you certainly don't want the world to tell them how to react during the tribulation period. This book will tell them that they need to get saved immediately, and then we'll give them tips on how to survive this horrible time period. So please go down to the description section in this video and either choose the downloadable 9 versions of this free book, or you can get the paperback version and physically hand it to your lost friend or loved one. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.